Welcome to the CX Roundtable. This is part 2 of our workforce management series. I am so happy that this was the first series that we decided to create, and I was able to do it with such experts because after the first conversation, I feel like I have such a foundational understanding of what workforce management is, or WFM, and how things are going to evolve over the next couple of episodes are going to be possible because we forced ourselves to just stick with the foundational pieces that needed to be defined. This episode today is the one that I think all three of us were the most excited to dig into, but we're going to be talking about why does WFM matter? And when you're talking about an area of a business that some people may not totally understand, hopefully they do now because they listened to the first episode, but really starting to dig into why is this so important? Why should companies invest in this? Why do teams need this to be able to deliver the results that they should deliver? How does it show itself? Like, all of these different layers are questions that most of us have, but we don't really know how to ask, or we don't have people that we feel safe enough to ask. And I'm so lucky that I have two people that I feel very safe in asking a lot of questions to. So let's let you guys introduce yourself just so that everybody knows who's joining me today. We'll start with you, Dan.
So not to repeat the exact same intro, so Dan Smitley, founder of 2-3 Consulting, WFM professional. Leo Myers-Briggs, I'm an INTP on Enneagram. I'm a nonconformist. And then on 6 types of working genius, my geniuses are wonder and discernment. So a little bit different.
What are you going to bring to the table next episode? My gosh, I love it. I'm putting you on the
Wow,
spot here, Arlyne. That's going to be a tough one to follow. I'm so sorry.
I need to prepare for this. Allison. All right, hello everybody. My name is Arlyne Pardo, based in Panama, right? And what was we talking about? Oh yeah, I'm Cancer, so probably that's some of the explanations why we get along, probably, I guess. Yes, I have like more than 8 years of professional experience in the contact center, which is a passionate for me. And recently I got my diploma in Bachelor of Administrator. Yes.
Saw that. Congratulations. Well,
A
we are so
long, long
happy.
journey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet. But you stuck with it. And I think that the amount of time that it takes to complete something doesn't matter. What matters is that you did it. And that is something worth celebrating. So I
The
hope that
consistency. Yes,
you feel that.
exactly. I was so excited that moment when I was, at the stage receiving my diploma. So, yes.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Congratulations. I'm so happy that everybody that listens to this episode will be able to celebrate with us. And I mean, it just adds to all of your credentials of why it's so important that you're here. So let's dive in. I'm going to first start with understanding cost and capacity. And there's another part of this that I think we'll end up spending way more time on, but I want to just make sure we touch on this at the very beginning just to kind of continue to build on this foundation. So, I think the first thing that we should address here is, where does WFM directly protect revenue or reduce cost in ways that most leaders miss? Dan, I'll start with you.
So I think, again, trying to think of the context of the environments that we've often in as startups or in like justifying of WFM. I think leaders will eventually see it. So this whole like, where do they miss it? Let's like position it in the beginning.
Mhm.
Why? Maybe what are they missing the value of WFM and around revenue and cost? And the simplest answer is, what's likely your biggest cost center? It's probably your labor in almost every organization, right? Depending upon your product, your service might be very large. Your service team might be very large, and again, a huge portion of your cost. WFM, simply put, helps you manage those people efficiently. So if we go back to the how and the what we do, we're aligning resources to volume, we're aligning resources to customer interactions. And without WFM, you're kind of just guessing. And we talked a little bit about forecasting as just fancy guessing, but um, you're dumb guessing, not fancy guessing. We at least give you fancy guessing. we give you a little bit better guessing. And really, I mean, simply put, we're going to help align those resources so that you're not carrying a bunch of unnecessary headcount. That you know the cost that you're investing in being able to interact with your customers isn't because 80% of the time they're sitting twiddling their thumbs, or that the customers are sometimes coming in and not getting serviced appropriately because you have your staff misaligned. And in a sales organization, staff misaligned to customer demand is missed revenue. So whether it's a service team where you're just handling service volume or it's a sales team handling revenue generation, the bottom line, both environments want their people exactly where the customer wants to be. That's WFM. We're the ones that are helping you align the forecasted demand with the forecasted need.
Such a great answer. And it reminds me, I was on a walk with my husband after our first episode, and I was just kind of marveling at how empowering this role is for leaders that are leading their teams, because you have data that is proving that this is what you need, or you have what you need, or this is how things should be organized. And so that just mental gymnastics of, am I am I leveraging my team the way that is the most effective? Am I utilizing their skills in the way that is the most effective? Am I right with my gut feeling telling me we are understaffed? Like, all of these things, you have support. And we talked about this a lot last week, and it was about, how you have the opportunity to play kind of like the negotiator and offer that support to the teams that you're working with. And so, yeah, I think that that's such a great angle of, you're hiring this leader to manage these teams, and you're also then hiring them to understand the future. And in under trying to figure out the future, they're not going to be able to think about the future from a strategic, these are the trends, let's figure out how we can be proactive, let's figure out all these. It's You're trying to convince people to see the future of volume, of all of these little things that aren't necessarily in their wheelhouse. And it's okay that it's not in their wheelhouse, because there's folks like you that are able to use this and really lift them up and leverage things in the way that makes the business as efficient and effective as possible. Arlyne, in the BPO space, how do these conversations kind of roll with the, proving your value?
For the BPO, it depends a lot on the pricing model that we will have with our customers. So, for example, at the end, everything will translate into having the right headcount, because either if our pricing model is by logging hours, we need to make sure that we have the right amount of people. Otherwise, it will cost us more to be overstaffed. And if we are understaffed, there are several impacts that we could have in the accounts, in the customer experience, in our own revenue as well. So having these early conversations with everybody that needs to be involved, training, quality operations managers, and align on what's the hiring plans that we need to make sure that we have the right amount of people or headcount, and not be reactive. Because if we are late on giving a recommendation, either because we are over or under, it will have negative impacts. So it's like we are the quarterbacks of on this part, like quarterback of the money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally true. That is what the role that you're playing in this space. And from your experience, Arlyne, like, do you have any examples that you can think of where you were really able to see what the true cost of having those under-resourced teams within those spaces?
We used to have an account that we started with a small headcount. Soon after, we had a great performance, so they give us more business. But given the fact of the attrition was too high, we never had the right amount of people. So this will directly impact us on having penalties because we are not meeting the hours. Behind that, there were other metrics impacted, such as the service level, for example, the AHT as well, because since we were doing a lot of hiring, basically half of the population was new, so we have more time of these ages talking rather than the 10-year ones. At the end, not having the right amount of people cost us for 4 months consecutive around $100,000. And after that, like having the right amount of people, not having that type of penalties that help us to secure the business as well. So not having the right amount of people when you need them definitely has a lot of zeros involved.
Yeah, holy moly, you are not kidding. That's feeling the pain right there in many different places of the business. Dan, when you have come across situations like this, how do you have these conversations that you're under-resourced?
People know it. The challenge isn't having a question of if we are under resourced, it's the value of appropriately resourcing, right? So I think if it's under, the pain that we're feeling are coming from the customers. And in most environments, if we're supporting customers, we have some way of understanding their experience, whether it's a post-call survey, an NPS, or even simply wait time or abandon rates. Like, regardless of our channel, we probably have some way of saying our customers are suffering. And so if we're under resourced, we see it that way. We might be feeling it to some extent from our agents saying they're burnout and that they're kind of their workload is heavy, but we at least see it on the customer side. So the conversation typically isn't we need more resources. The conversation is how do I make sure that I'm not overstaffing? Because more than likely, if we're feeling the pain, it's because budget's tight, because our money's tight, because we're trying to be frugal with it and we don't have a lot. So the idea of like, oh, we've got 40 and you're telling me we need another 10? 10's a lot. What if I give you four? What does four look like? And I think it's the negotiation for how much do we really want to go after the pain of the customer. And I think an important framework that I use a lot in thinking about WFM, and I think it'll be helpful for our conversation. For me, there's kind of a 3 point um, weight scale, and it's not that they all need to be in perfect balance, but the three pieces on that scale are customer experience, business outcome, and agent needs. And it's appropriate at different points for any one of those to be way more important because of the culture, because of the finances, because of we're about to have, go public, whatever it is, there's appropriateness of saying business outweighs agent right now. Agent outweighs customer. Customer and agent are more important than business right now. And I think going back to your question of simply how do you have these conversations? It's understanding the conversation that you're in and the focus right now. So right now money might be tight and we can't have customer experience be this great, wonderful thing. We need 10 and we're gonna have to make do with four. The money on the business side is way more important. The profitability is way more important. What can we do now to give maybe breaks to our agents so that way we can boost up their experience a little bit better? We can't get them more bodies, but can we give them a little more breathing room? Is that something we can do? And I think it's the negotiation of saying I can't get all three to where I want them to be, and one's just getting destroyed, but how can I help support another with the second one, the second priority? Because obviously the first priority is fine. Business is going to get their profitability. How can I maybe, in this example, how can I maybe take care of the agents? So simply put, understand the conversation that you're having. The pain is there. The question I think really becomes how can you advocate for that secondary priority of boosting it up a little bit more, because the most important, the least important, probably aren't up for debate inside of your organization. But that second one, you might be able to play with a little bit and get creative.
I think that's such an important thing, not even just in like the WFM space. I think just in general, when you are having conversations, I mean, especially about headcount, but really anything related to budget, it's I've made this mistake many, many times, especially early in my leadership experience. Like you fight in a way that's like you're passionate about it. Like you fight from that place of I know this is the right thing to do. I know that this is what has to happen. I know that this is important. And the framework that you just laid out, I think is such a good way to make people pause and acknowledge what bucket that fire inside of them exists in. Maybe write it out so that it's not screaming in their head when they're going into these spaces, because it finds its way out even when you don't want it to come out otherwise. But just kind of maybe write out what the conversation is for each bucket so that you know where each thing exists, and then grab the one that makes sense for your audience. And I really think that that's such an important thing that you just explained, because it's so easy to just lean into your heart, and this is business, and you can have your heart be there to get you to where you need to go, but the way that you explain the situation, the way that you advocate for this situation needs to be spoken in the language that is the most appropriate for the people that are right in front of you.
Yes, and so yes, it's about knowing your audience. Yes, it's about understanding how to adjust. And again, I think it's honest to say, and we're having this why conversation about WFM. Why does WFM matter? It's because we do impact the customer experience. We do impact the business profitability. We do impact the agent experience. Those are all true. And I don't think it's us talking out of both sides of our mouths that we change the topic and change the approach depending upon if we're talking to HR versus the finance team versus right. I think it's still being honest. I think for me at least, you're talking about kind of what's that fire and which one's kind of passionate for you and which one's connected for you. I think there's an argument to be made that regardless of which one's your natural passion, they are all still interconnected. If you are driven by profit, having a good agent and experience and customer experience will drive your profitability. If you care about your employees, you need to have a profitable organization to pay them well. If you care about the customer experience, having and caring for the agents to be able to provide, right? Like I think regardless of where you sit, you have to pay honor and respect to all three, and realizing that yes, maybe I care more, quote unquote, about the agent experience, but I can't have a really positive agent experience if our company can't get the profitability that needs to be sufficient and our raises continue to be 1% because our profit margins aren't there. Like maybe the best way for you to care for your people is to improve the profitability of the organization.
Oh, good. That's so good, because I mean, I don't disagree at all, and it's important to have that reframe of, it's not that the finance team doesn't care about the agent experience. They are all intertwined, and it's seeing the business as a business, seeing the different areas of the business that make these things kind of domino from there will allow you to kind of articulate what needs to be articulated in a much more grounded way. So I'm so glad that you shared that. Thank you. I think that that ties really well into, I mean, we kind of already touched on the link between accurate staffing and customer trust, because it is all so connected. I mean, we all know this from building teams and leading teams. It's if the agent is not able to be present, if they do not have the tools they need to be successful, the customer is going to feel it. If the agent is able to be present, if they have the tools they need to be successful, the agent is going to be able to deliver the results in the way that the customer feels it and is excited about it. Do either of you have any examples in your experience where, like, you were able to like really see this result of, okay, we're talking about how we need to have things staffed. We're saying this is the efficient like plan for us to meet the customer needs, to meet the profitability needs, to meet the agent needs. Look at the increase in customer experience because we just did this.
If you're looking for an example, and Arlyne, I definitely want to get you in on this, but if you're looking for an example of like when WFM basically is the question when WFM improved the customer experience, or is it
Yeah.
okay? Yeah, so at an organization I was with, um, this is interesting because I hope to try not to bleed too much into like other topics that we want to hit on, but their scheduling was really static. So they were forecasting out their demand. They understood kind of where they were, what they were going to need, and really they had one or two levers, and that was simply, ooh, we are going to be understaffed kind of the whole week in general, generically. Like, okay, slap mandatory overtime on people. Like it normally was a last minute resort, but like we know it's going to be a bad week, not a bad interval or a bad day, but a bad week. So it's 5 hours across the board for everyone. It's slow. We'll pull back 5 hours. And that was kind of the two levers that they had. The impact to the business, we can talk about how it was misaligning resources because it was just flat overtime or flat reduced hours across the board. But from a customer experience place, it was almost too late where I'll reframe it. What it is we're giving ourselves a placebo effect. We are saying we're doing something by adding hours kind of willy-nilly wherever, but the reality is the customer isn't benefiting from this. The customer is having a disproportionate drive of volume at these hours, and we're not adding the hours there. And so the impact to the customer is during those prime hours, the customer experience is still horrible. It's still abandoning at 15%, 10%, 30, whatever that number was, and simply readjusting the practice of overtime as an example shifted not just the profitability because we're using fewer overtime hours because we're only honing in on the actual busy periods, but the customer experience is improving because instead of patting ourselves in the back saying we put overtime hours at 8 a.m. when no one's calling, and not helping us at all. We're actually putting it where the customers are calling us, and the experience is simply better. They're waiting on the line. They're getting a better experience, and a simple pulling down an abandon rate, especially on a sales line, from 7% down to 3% can be a massive game changer for an organization. And that was a real story, a real environment for me of like just shifting the practice of overtime hours makes a big difference.
Big
Remind me,
impact.
I'm so sorry.
No, no,
This
no, you
reminds
go.
to an example to a scenario that we had prior. We used to have this account that their busy period was November and December. So through the year, we will have a very steady headcount, maybe around 10 to 20 agents through the whole year. But when it comes to November and December, this will increase 10 times. So we will have more than 100 agents. And this was a sales line because of November and December, right? So we used to have at the beginning 10% of abandon on this sales line, while distributing the schedules in a better way and understanding how the customer interacts with us, like that will help us to reduce that from 10% over to 3% and some days to 0%, like 0% on our abandons on sales line. So it has to, it's linked. And also you will see the impact as well on the surveys or the MPS. While you were talking, Dan, that's what comes to my mind, because now we have an account that all of our agents were coming trained on only voice, but as well we have a channel for these customers, and it will take us more time to do like a cross train to have these agents the capacity, the tools, the understanding to how to manage chats, right, and have them comfortable enough to being moved to chat. just by saying or reviewing the numbers and say, hey, instead of doing these real-time movements from these cross-trained agents, let's have a baseline of chat agents available for our customers. And we see a direct correlation in that because the NPS or the CSAT will be horrible when we had to do the scaling on real time. It was very reactive rather than proactive on that part. And when it's like down with this baseline of the staff agents assigned to chat, there was an improvement on the CSAT and NPS, definitely. Like whenever we see like very negative surveys, it was whenever we are doing the previous strategy that we had in place. So for me, it's like no matter if you are a 24/7 operation, like the same interaction should be if you call us at 2 a.m. in the morning or if you call us at 6 p.m. in the afternoon. So
Those are two great examples. Thank you so much for sharing both of those. And Arlyne, I'm going to stick with you here to get to the thing that I'm most excited for us to talk about. And I think everything we've been talking about so far has really touched on this, but we're going to dig deep. But how does WFM influence burnout and engagement and predictability or fairness?
wow, a lot, honestly. Like if we get the run schedules, it automatically will decrease the morale of the agents. There could be an effect or domino effect as well that will increase absenteeism because people doesn't want to show up because they have a horrible schedule. This reminds me when we opened operations in South Africa. We were not used to these 2 days off together, and we were giving to all the agents split days off. And it was not something that they were happy about it because they had 10-hour shift lengths. So only one day between that, it was not enough for them to be rest, to disconnect from the role, maybe. And our absenteeism was high back those days. We work allowed. We work allowed to be more creative. And we find a way to, on a rotational model, to give the 2 days consecutive to the agents. And immediately we see an improvement on adherence, on an attendance, and employee engagement. So sometimes WFM doesn't want to realize that, but they have a direct impact on the well being of the agents
Yeah.
directly.
Yeah. How does that information travel to the WFM team from the agent? Like if they had a terrible schedule, how does that travel?
On different ways. They could complain directly to the supervisors and they will relay the message to us. Some of them have the courage to directly send a Teams message or an email to WFM. I know that on some companies, there is like a sort of survey to the employees about the scheduling satisfaction. And as well, just by looking at the data. Like if we start looking to very bad numbers and we start to dig in what's happening on this, we will find out the answer. And I I did that exercise like a few months ago for attrition. There was an account that has a high attrition, and I wanted to find out what's the cause of this attrition. And one of the top 10 reasons that the agents put there was the schedule, that they were not having like a rotation, or maybe because the account was 16 hours operating hours, like they will have like the same schedule for 2 months in a row. They haven't seen the light or something like that. They will put it there. Like if you take the time to try to understand why your numbers are not looking good, and you use what you have available, in my case was the exit form, you can find the reasons why people is leaving. Or as well, if you go into another or focus on another metric as well.
Yeah. Dan, what about you? What's your experience there?
So the question has like 3 or 4 different components inside of it, like how can
Yeah.
and I think I could give you any answer on each piece. I think the piece that I'd love to highlight is just the engagement piece. In a lot of contact centers, agents don't have autonomy. And I think that varies in a lot of different environments, right? So some environments, you barely have a schedule. You come in when you want, you say what you want, you take the calls that you want, and there's a high sense of autonomy. I think that those are out there. It's rare. I think for the majority, though, if we're going to fault one way or the other, it's probably going to be on the other end,
Yep.
where not only do you have a schedule, but we also keep track of your attendance down to a minute or two of you being late. We keep track of whether you're going to your bathroom at the right time or not, if you're taking too many breaks to get water. We might script you. And so it's not just from a legal, regulation perspective, but because we don't trust you to say the right things. And so we script it. And maybe if it's not scripting, maybe it's just quality, but we still require you to say the experience of an agent, I think, unfortunately, at the core, is one of a real lack of autonomy that as leaders, we often forget. We can kind of come and go as we want. We decide what meetings we want to go to. And so for me, I think WFM actually is one of the few places that can give back autonomy to the agents without too many negative consequences. And what that's looked like for me in the past, I referenced kind of an environment that was just blanket reduced hours or overtime hours. I was able to build a program there that allowed the agents to actually adjust the schedules themselves based upon net staffing. So we need everyone to pick up 5 additional overtime hours. We've made that available to you guys. Here's the calendar. Here's all the intervals. We need help. We're 10 short here, 5 short here, 3 short here, 30 short here. Go grab the hours. You grab those hours, and their schedules will update automatically based upon if we needed their help or didn't need their help. And the benefit was clear to us. We're getting the hours exactly where we needed. The customer was benefiting from it. We are controlling our overtime hours where we're only putting them exactly where we need them to be, as an example. But for the agents, there's some control finally. I don't have to fight with WFM about take the hours here, put them here. I can't do additional hours. I've got this, I've got class after here. I could say, oh, there it was a remote environment. I want to do all 5 hours on a Saturday. I never would have thought to ask someone to give up one of their days off. It was better for this person. And the simple choice, that choice can have such an impact to feeling like you have some sense of control, some sort of autonomy at work. And I'm a fan of Daniel Pink, and autonomy is a big, important variable for internal motivation. And I think WFM misses that. We say, oh, we're just aligning numbers to numbers. We're just trying to figure out how to better. And we're still doing that with them. But by simply saying, instead of me adjusting your schedules to the demand, letting you adjust your schedule to the demand, I get my numbers match numbers benefit, right? But you feel like you have a voice. And I think that's huge for so many people just to have something of saying, I'm not just getting put upon, but I'm contributing. And it was a big shift in our culture, and it had a huge benefit to the organization, into the engagement scores, to the attrition, to the Glassdoor reviews. It was pretty impactful.
Well, because they're able to have a life. They're able to they're able to be present when they need to be present in spaces and not be like, I have to do this. I have to not go to this thing. I have to call out of class. I have to do, or I'm at risk of getting fired. Like all of these fear-based things that exist underneath, not having control or not having a say in how you're utilizing your free time, which is what working overtime is. I mean, of course that's going to have an impact, and I love that you noticed that. And as you were talking about it too, I was thinking like being able to prove the impact of this autonomy within a contact center space is such a great data point in so many other places where leaders don't have autonomy. I mean, just thinking like for headcount, instead of saying like, this is what you can pay this person, this is what you can pay this person, like, here is a bucket of money. I trust you to use this the way that you see fit. when it is correct for you. And this can be used for a spot bonus as well as hiring a new person. This can be used. So it's like not having autonomy forces so many people in so many different roles to have to beg. And that kind of a power dynamic is never one that is healthy. And it's never one that makes you feel safe. It's never one that makes you want to have your friends come and work for these companies or support these businesses because you don't feel like you are valued enough to actually do what you were hired to do. And so to give them that sense of autonomy in how they choose to spend their time, know that they will show up in this time that they have chosen to work. Like, I mean, that's just saying you're an adult. This is what we need.
And it touches on another piece inside of your question around fairness. So the environment that I created was not come and go as you wish. It
Mhm.
wasn't, we need everyone to pick up overtime and it doesn't matter where you apply the overtime, just pick it up, right? There was these rules that said
Mhm.
during these periods. And once, if I'm 10 over and you're trying to get the 11th and 12th spot, it's going to decline. You don't get that
Yep.
spot. My need is met. You have to find your
Mhm.
hours somewhere else. And if everyone else is picking up 5 hours of overtime and you're not, the fairness approach is there's consequences. So this isn't like a you can just come and go and there's no
No.
rules and there's no regulations and there's no consequences of coming into work late. I think for me, it was about communicating clearly the expectations, being able to hold them accountable, and then holding them accountable to say, this isn't everyone applies 3. This is 5 hours of overtime. And if I miscalculated, that's on me. And then I'll come back and tell everyone, if you've picked up 5 and you only want to do 4, 4 is the new number. I'll peel it off if you want. I'll readjust. But I think that comes back to that fairness piece. It's not asking certain individuals to work a bunch more just because you got to them first. And it's about communicating clearly what I'm expecting out of everyone. Something as simple as attendance. It's
Yep.
about appropriately and consistently applying that. I think that's how WFM helps with fairness.
Totally. Well, and just the accountability and also like the empowerment of knowing what the expectations are. And that doesn't mean you can't talk about consequences. You should talk about consequences because otherwise they're going to have to make an assumption of what could happen should something not go the way that it's supposed to go. And you're then able to have a conversation. So if you're setting up this system and you're noticing, oh, hey, this one person, every single time they try and do it, they keep trying to grab slots that aren't there because it's already filled up. Now, you're not going to go to them and try to figure out how you're going to weave that in. It's no, we've already established this is the expectation. This is what happens when you wait 5 hours to log in because, you were doing something else. And do you want to talk about it? Is there something that I need to know so that I can better support you and we can help figure this out together? It's it's respectful. And I love that that was just kind of woven in to what you were building out because again, that's giving them the the you're treating them like an adult. Like at the end of the day, you are treating them like an adult and it is really easy to feel like you are not being treated like an adult in a lot of these situations and it's good to be reminded.
Sure.
Arlyne, do you have any situations where if you want to touch on any of like the other like the burnout, the engagement, the predictability that you've experienced in your space over the years?
Yes, definitely. While we were talking about this one, I just tied this point to the first thing that we talk about on this episode. If we don't get the right head count as well, if we are constantly missing the right amount of people that we need as an overall, it means that our agents will have additional workload every single time. They can't breathe. They will have back to back interactions, and that definitely can be directly impact on the burnout of the agents. And we as WFM should be conscious about it as well. If we know that we have been understaffed for the last 40 months or something, we need to stand our grounds and talk to the persons that we need to get the approval for the additional headcount if that's the scenario, because it's impacting our agents. And yes, we can have a lot of agents that are willing to do overtime, but there will be a point on time that they will just say, no, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, especially if they're not getting a raise. It's, are you, yes, overtime is additional money at a different rate, but like they are doing you a favor. Every time someone's doing overtime, they're doing you a favor and they're compensated accordingly. And I think that a lot of that burnout potential exists because that resentment kind of starts to build up. It's like, I'm going above and beyond all the time. I am always saying yes. I am always here. What's happening? And to have that kind of conversation is important.
Yes, a pizza party is nice, but it's not nice after the third time because we are asking for overtime. It's
Yeah.
not because the agents as well are saying no to any family responsibility to
Right.
not attend to the movie theater with their husband or wife. Like they're saying no to something in their personal life to be at work, and how we are compensating that if the next month that they are sick or something, we are putting penalties on them.
Yep. Yeah, it's like give, 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 give. You're expecting of the agent, but then you're still policing their bathroom break. You're still, you're not giving them any grace to be a human that is going above and beyond all the time. And I think this ties seamlessly into what you were talking about in the last episode, Dan, that's really stuck with me about how much WFM impacts communities. And is there anything you'd like to add about that for this type of topic?
The point is still the same, which is the WFM does impact the community. WFM leaders as a whole get stuck in the trap of assuming what they know what people want, right? I hear it all the time. If you simply let the agents choose whatever they want, all of them are going to want banker hours. They're all going to want Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Everyone wants that. And you can't just give that because we need help on the nights and the weekends and blah, blah, blah. That assumption short circuits the opportunity to have a creative conversation with people because their community and their lives look so different. I think if you ask those exact same leaders that were like, everyone wants Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, you'd be like, okay, but what nights free happens in your family? Like, when are you as the leader, when are you busy in the evenings? Because I bet you it looks different than my schedule. And I bet you our gym workouts look different. You probably go, I go with this. So if we're different, as leaders in an organization, why do we assume that all of our agents are the exact same thing and they all have the exact same needs? Like, how hard is it to simply look at one team of 20 people? You're probably not going to all have nuclear families. You're not all going to have married couples. You're not all going to have people that even want to go out. You're probably going to have some people in there that want to grind and burn and take up. Why don't we have a conversation with them that says, this is what we need as an organization. Here are the boundaries for fairness, what's appropriate. Here are the options. Here's what we're thinking about and what works best for you. How can we accommodate what you need of having, Arlyne, you referenced earlier, right? For your team, 410s was too much. I have found great success with 410s. Some people love having that third day off and being able to have 3 in a row. They have a whole doctor's appointment day, they have a whole rest day, they have a whole family day, or whatever it is. We do ourselves a disservice when we assume that the community and personal life needs of our agents are all of the same. And I would simply encourage leaders, and especially WFM professionals, to lean into their curiosity and their creativity, to not simply match numbers to numbers, because we can do that and we will do that. But how can we match numbers to numbers while having a conversation that says, how can I accommodate what you might find important today, this week, this season? And let me know when we need to have this conversation again. I can't always promise I'm going to give it to you, but we can have a conversation because we might be able to get creative. And I, I get goosebumps, the literal goosebumps, thinking about how much good we can do being open to those conversations and adjusting to their life demands that still benefit us, still benefits the business, still benefits the customer, but simply because we listened, the agent's benefiting too. It could be fun.
Gosh, that's like such a great thing for us to end on too. I mean, it's the exact same thing as the overtime hours. You are explaining what the expectations are. You are explaining what the needs are. And why would you hire all of these people to do this job and never think that it is appropriate to have a conversation about what a good schedule for them to be as present as possible can look for them? Because you are so right. If you are in a like fixed system that you have no opportunity to make any changes, you have no say in anything aside from taking like the 4 days of PTO that you have all year, then when you do ask for something, like let's say you want to go to your kids field trip, hey, is it okay if I work a late shift because there's something really important? And the answer is no, because they don't have that. Okay. But if you were entering in saying, these are the buckets, everybody has the opportunity to choose what works best for them, and then that person goes to their boss and they say, they just opened up a slot for another parent on the field trip. Like, is there anything that we can do? Not only do you now have the tools to open this up to the rest of the team to see if someone can switch with them, but also if you can't, they understand the system. They understand how things work because you let them in. And so it's not my boss hates me. It's not my boss, only ever does this to this person over here. It's this time it just didn't work out. Next time I've got a good feeling about it. And that's what makes people stay.
You get it. You get it, WFM. You get it.
He's
I
ready.
love it. I love it. I love it. What is going to happen by the end of episode 4 of this? I am going to be like running the show. No, I'm not at all. I have so much more to learn.
You're
I feel like I
Definitely,
already am.
yeah.
I feel like I
You
already am.
are, yes. Who
Thank
knows?
you.
By the part number 4, then you will be like a ninja spreadsheet, assigning and calculating requirements and all of that. So
Hey, I taught an Excel class in college, so this is my language right here, and I'm very excited for everything to come. Thank you both so much for this round 2. I'm even more excited for round 3. And is there anything you would like to end on for this episode specifically today, or do you think we really hit the core of what we wanted to talk about?
Arlyne, I'll let you go first.
I think we hit, but I want to remark something that ask your agents. Probably they know the answer. Either you need to improve a process, if you want to pilot a scheduling rotation or scheduling changes. There are more chances if you ask them and they feel that they are being heard, they will be willing to participate and come to the party. So maybe your people knows the answer.
I love that.
The episode is why does WFM matter? And at the beginning I try to set up kind of these three-pronged weighted system. And that is the answer for me. So in every environment it's a little bit different. But why does WFM matters if you care about the employee experience, you want to retain your talent, you want to engage your employees, you need creative, well-structured, well thought out WFM. If you care about your profitability, you care about aligning your labor costs to your demand and making sure that you're maximizing your opportunities, WFM matters. And if you care about the customer experience, making sure that they get a seamless experience, a consistent experience when interacting with your organization, WFM matters. I'm biased, but I think we're kind of important, and I think we do a lot of good in organizations. And hopefully by the end of this podcast, others on that are listening will agree with us.
I think they will. I definitely think they will. Thank you both again so very much, and I'll see you soon.